Golden Spiral Media presents The Blacklist Exposed.
Season 3 is here, so we promise that we won't bore you with any of those dumbass literary quotes. Welcome to The Blacklist Exposed. I am Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson, and the only thing this kick-ass premiere was missing was Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones to achieve a fugitive perfection. Thanks for joining us this week as we discuss number 38 on the Blacklist, The Troll Farmer, which aired October 1st, 2015, and was written by John Bokenkamp and John Eisendrath, and directed by Michael Watkins. Show notes and other intel for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found at theblacklistexposed.com. Quick reminder, if you have not done so already, you can now take our show on the go with the Blacklist Exposed app for iOS and Android. That way, if you're on the run like Liz and Red, you can still get all the intel and analysis you desire. Search for the Blacklist Exposed in the iOS App Store or on Google Play.
Now, we asked you during our Season 3 preview show a few weeks ago, our profiling question of the week. Other than Liz and Red's mysterious association, what is the one question you most want answered this season?
Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready for some of the listener picks?
I can't wait. I've been waiting for this all summer to get back with the fan community.
Tina wants to know what happened to Jennifer, and is she really Red's daughter?
Ah, yes, Naomi's daughter. Is that really Red's daughter? Good question. Good question.
You got any theory on it?
I don't at this point, because Jennifer was mentioned once in the entire sequence, and then we've never heard of her again except for maybe that ballet scene. So is Jennifer really part of that ballet sequence? Is that the same person?
Dun, dun, dun. That's a good question, Tina. Hestia, I hope I said that right, had a ton of stuff, but the unique items were where is Gina Zany Tacos and more on Red's past.
Yeah, because remember, Gina there was a mention right at the end of season 1 that she was either let go or escaped. And so now that Tom's out on a boat, or is Gina and them going to come back together, since Gina and Tom were either framed by Red or worked for Red in some capacity at some time.
Well, you assume Tom is still on this boat. You don't know where Tom is. I think he's pulled into a marina by now.
Well, Ryan Eggold did say on Twitter that he had just...
Don't spoil anything.
Don't spoil anything, fine.
Don't spoil anything. We don't want people to know.
You can go read Ryan Eggold's tweets if you want to be spoiled.
There you go. I caught him. I stopped him, people. Suzanne wants to know what happened to the dog. What dog?
There was the dog, in the pilot episode, right? Doesn't the dog jump into bed and lick them awake, and then you never see the dog again?
Oh, I'm sure Red ate it. That'd be my first guess, because he likes fine cuisine. I'm thinking, dog is probably a unique dish somewhere. So.
Well, we know there's no children hitting it with ball-peen hammers, since you can't kill dogs or rabbits now.
Yeah, it's against the rules apparently. Kate said, "What is the connection between the director and Katerina Rostova?"
Yeah, that was a really interesting point when Liz came into the director's office at the end of last season and said, hey, here's the fulcrum, and we got it. And he's like, how much you really look like your mother. So were they actually working together at some point? And does that make Katerina really an FBI or a Russian spy? Or does it really mean that she maybe was undercover in Russia as an American spy?
Double agent?
Double agent.
Triple agent? How many depths can we go? How many? Triple? Quadruple? Can you go quadruple agent? Is that possible?
Coming this fall on Sci-Fi, Octo Agent.
Octo Agent. Oh man, these are some great questions about the season at large, and we're going to talk more about Katerina Rostova as we talk about the actual premiere here in a second. Lindsay still wants to know how Pepper had the key to the fulcrum.
Remember that was the hippies that were living in the commune. And
that's a good question. I wanted to know that too. I have no idea.
Because Red just turns to her and says, "Pepper, where is it?"
Yeah. And she's
and
like,
it's up in the wind chime or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's where I keep my keys, is in my wind chimes. Don't you?
I don't keep extra keys. I don't lock myself out.
I break in through windows.
Exactly right.
2 more. Francis wants to know what Red's end goal is.
Don't we all?
Come on, Francis. Everybody wants to know that. And if you find out, we'll give you $20 if you tell us. And David, he wants more backstories.
I agree 110%, especially after reading the comic book this past summer, because I want to know what happened between 1990 and 1994.
In Cambodia or what?
Anywhere. Just how did Red come to know all of these criminals in the first place? I want to see that type of backstory, and then I want to see the backstory between Harold and Cooper, that's the same person, between Cooper and Red when they were working together, And then maybe even some of the backstory with Ressler when he was actually trying to find Reddington before taking on the current assignment.
Well, here's a question I have in regards to the backstories, and that wasn't our last one. Thank you, David. I'm a big movie and TV guy, so are you. I like a little mystery. Do you really want everything spelled out?
Not that it's spelled out. I mean, it'd be great to find those little nuggets because it helps build the characters. I mean, I hate to reference Lost, but the one thing that was
No,
cool
you
about
don't. You do not hate to reference Lost, Alias, or Heroes, man. Any given that's Alias, or that's Lost, or that's Heroes. Yeah.
But that was a good thing that made Lost what it was that every week you went through those flashbacks and you got to learn more about the character and their motives and why they are who they are today. So I think just little nuggets of their backstories would be nice just to get a little extra, why are they the way they are today?
How about we get a little backstory on that ending? All right, that's another podcast. Let's move on.
Well, these are very awesome, but we would like to make them even better. If you want to answer the question in your own voice, you can head on over to the blacklistexposed.com and use our send a voice message button. It's really super easy. You can do it from your computer or smartphone, iOS or Android. So once you hear next week's question, you can actually pause the podcast right now and try it out.
And for next week, we have our new profiling question. We tell you at the beginning and then at the end of our show. The question this week is, what do they want with Dembe? What do they want with Dembe? So what are your ideas? What are your thoughts? We'll get more into it as the episode, but we want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, and expand, because we all assume that they want Dembe to get to Red. But expand. Why? There might be something more about Dembe that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want those backstories.
I want backstories on people that aren't Red. Red, I like the mystery. I like when he just gives story time and we learn a little bit and somebody has to have like a giant clipboard where they keep track of everything.
I want a picture of Glenn as a jelly bean when he was in the womb.
Well, speaking of, Bokenkamp has been tweeting out like Spotify lists for each of the characters. I love that. It's like he is selecting songs based on each character and tweeting them out, and so people can kind of get in the mindset of the characters. Brilliant marketing, in my opinion.
Except that now I have to actually get a Spotify account because I'm an Apple Music user, and I'm like, dang it, now I have to go get Spotify.
I'll give you my login. You can try it out. You know what I'm saying?
All right, there you go.
There you go.
With that, let's see if we can find some peace below the wind as we break down this week's case profile.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but Troy likes to use his little clever quotes from the episode.
I do.
Did you catch that? One little thing, because we do realize that Season 3 has now started, so we probably have some people that have never listened to the podcast before, so you just want to clarify how we do our show. If this is the first time you've listened, how we do our episode breakdown is not like most podcasts. We don't recap every single scene, but we discuss the main story from the episode and then go through our main characters to see where they all are with each of their subplots. We never spoil ahead of the episode we're talking about, and we don't even discuss the trailer for the next episode. Anything you want to add to that, Troy?
Nope. I agree 100%. We are complete mystery here, just like Red himself.
All right. Now, basically, this premise was The Fugitive with Ressler, like I alluded to earlier. He was checking every henhouse, doghouse, and outhouse in Washington, D.C., and they apparently Red and Liz hold up the first half of the episode under a drain sink with Red's contact and his shady sister, Tiffany. And I got to ask you this, because a lot of people really hated Tiffany. Is she really bad because she called in a tip, or is she she's actually a good person? I mean, she was doing it for the right reasons.
Well, I guess the question is if Red knows Tiffany somehow, some way, based on the assumption when they came in as he held her at gunpoint, the question then becomes, why do that if you had some faith in this family in the first place? Why would she be all like, Liz is scary when Red's actually scarier than Liz is? You know, I thought it was weird.
Well, but you got to look at it from her perspective. I mean, she is an innocent. She doesn't know Red. She doesn't know Liz. She's on TV, and they're saying Liz is a terrorist. She has planned a terrorist attack. Her mom was a Russian spy. She's a Russian spy. I mean, there's a lot from her perspective. If I'm just sitting around, at Taco Bell, and Liz wanders in and orders a burrito, I'm going to freak out and run out the door because that's a terrorist. So I get where she's coming from.
But you're a general populace there. This is someone that is already living with a pseudo-criminal, and then that pseudo-criminal knows Reddington, and I'm sure they've talked and had conversations since they had to prove the fact that Tiffany was who she said she is. So Tiffany should be a little bit more lenient, I would think. than to call the FBI right away on Liz, who she just met.
Yeah, she should be, but she's being a good Samaritan. Maybe she's not aware of how criminal he is, her brother is, It's possible.
Oh, that could be.
Well, getting back to the actual full scope of the premiere. When it comes to this episode, we've had 3 premieres now. Where does this one rate in terms of season premieres for you?
Oh, they're just so different. I mean, you can't knock the pilot at any way, shape, or form because the pilot was so unexpected when Zimani stabs Tom and then she stabs Red in the neck with a pen, and then the explosion on the bridge. I mean, it was just so much in that pilot episode. It's like it's almost like a class on its own that you can't compare it. Mm-hmm. And then you literally open up season 2 with Hellfire missiles raining on a beach. I mean, that's just epic right there. But this was different in a way that almost, and what I really like is that we kind of had this with the Super Bowl. It's like a reboot of the show. Mm-hmm. This was something that was totally different. And if you never saw the Blacklist before today, you could literally pick up the Blacklist and watch it from now and understand everything that's going on because they were able to address who Peter was and the director. They were able to address the fulcrum. And then new people would be like, well, what's the fulcrum? Why was it leaked out? And then you could just get that answer really quickly without having to go back and watch the last 2 seasons, which we agree that you should do. But there was enough information in the episode that a new person could start watching from today and be fully entertained and understand what's going on.
I agree with that, except for the Liz terrorist attacks, because you would need more backstory on that, I think.
The Ressler did it right there in the beginning. It's like, this is Elizabeth King. Yes, she was my partner. She's killed these many CIA agents and this many CIA larger people and the Attorney General of the United States. Okay, Liz is on the run because she probably did all that. The question you then have is why? And if you're a new watcher, you're assuming the why is going to be the reason we're watching season 3, and the answer will be given at the end.
Well, I think if you're a new watcher, you would have a hard time understanding why she is, why everybody thinks she's innocent. Because, you only know, well, they're saying she did these horrible things. How do we know she didn't? You know what I mean? But I guess you're right. They do solidify that she shot Connolly, point blank. And they do solidify that she didn't have anything to do with the other terrorist attacks. So I can see what you're saying.
And then at the end of the episode, when she finally turns herself over to the Russian embassy, if you're a new watcher, that could be for them like, oh my gosh, she really is a terrorist.
Yeah.
For us, it's, oh my God, what the heck did she just do?
It was a brilliant ploy on my part, except it made her look more guilty, I think. But
oh yeah,
what are you going to do? And for me, this was really close to the series premiere for me. Like, it was really close in terms of which episode I preferred, because, I think the Blacklist has gotten a little bit too much ill will that it was too procedural for the first season, and then the second season it tried to get more serialized, but it's stuck to the basic formula, right? I mean, it's the basic formula in which every week the FBI would be going for a blacklister while the subplots were going on. This is a complete departure from that. So they have basically taken the story from the first 2 seasons and said, no, we're going to be a completely different series now. And I love it. I absolutely loved it. And I love the fact that they were bold enough to do it, because that is a huge gamble for network television, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And the fact that NBC has allowed that to happen just shows how much, I think, faith NBC has with the show. To let them have that creative freedom to say, okay, we are going to go from a week-to-week bad guy to more of an episodic, serialized type of show.
Yeah, it's just so bold, man. I give you guys credit. If you're listening to this, I give you all credit. That is a brave move. I've seen a lot of network television that played it safe for many, many years, then got a little bold at the end where it just didn't work. But, man, to do it in your 3rd season and completely shake up the entire series, kudos. Back to this particular episode. The Troll Farmer, the main story. The Troll Farmer is like a social engineer. He's the head of a group who create and orchestrate smoke and mirrors to take away the true focus of whatever is going on. You're trying to get people out of somewhere. You're trying to assassinate someone, so you're trying to divert attention, something along those lines. That's what the Troll Farmer is in charge of. Your opinion, Troy, is there any chance the Troll Farmer is a poke at internet trolls who nitpick the show?
That is the only thing that I could come up with, because I mean, he doesn't look like a troll. He doesn't live in a basement. He's not under a bridge somewhere. So the only thing that would make sense of why he's called the Troll Farmer was because he trolls the internet to find information that he can use in order to create these personas and diversions for things to happen that need to happen in order to either rob a bank, let people escape. cetera, et cetera.
I like to think of it that Bokenkamp and Weisendraft were kind of sitting there writing the show going, you know what? I am so sick of people trying to nitpick our show and divert attention from how good it is by picking apart little things like Liz not being strong enough or whatever the case was. Remember last season when we had those issues?
Yep.
She's too dumb. I would like to think, even if it's not true, I would like to think that it's them kind of poking at those people a little bit in good fun. So that's what I'm going with. Red had Bo Chang on retainer for 3 years, we learn, but he ultimately gives him up after he gets out. Now, what do you think about this concept, about people that actually orchestrate a diversion in order to facilitate some other event?
I think it's really cool. I mean, it's almost similar in a way to Lord Baltimore, being able to take all the information from the internet and use it to their advantage in order to set a stage going a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much information out there, and I really love the fact that we actually started out with kind of an internet issue in season 2, and now we're starting out with an internet issue in season 3. And I really love the fact that John and John use the kind of current day technology to, what do you call it? Create fear, I guess. This is something that could technically really happen, and so therefore it makes it more plausible to buy into as you watch the episode.
Oh, I loved it. I actually thought it was a brilliant idea that I never have thought about. The idea that there's a group out there that would manipulate fear and panic in order to facilitate some horrible event, I think is probably true. And I think our government probably does it. Conspiracy theory. And it's just, I liked it. Man, I have a hard time finding anything I didn't like about the premiere. I'll be honest with you. And it's not because we do this podcast and we're trying to be positive or anything. I literally loved this premiere. Loved it.
I have one nitpick. And it's not even a nitpick. It's
all right, troll. Go ahead. Tell us. What is it?
The fact that she gives the address to the Russian embassy. And then it was funny on Twitter, John Bokenkamp put out there, he's like, don't Google it. Don't Google it. And what's everybody going to do the second that happens? Everybody's going to go and Google it.
I like that. I like that. I thought it was cool.
I didn't Google it until after the show. And then I was like, oh, that's awesome. They actually use the real address.
I didn't Google it because I am so lazy. I'm just like, eventually we're going to find out. Why do I Google it? People need to control your excitement, man. Enjoy it. Let it unfold.
Yeah, if you're in a movie theater and this came up and they said, oh, here's an address, it's not like you're going to pull out your phone and shine the light in front of everybody to go look up the Russian embassy.
Based on my experiences with theaters, that is not true. They would totally pull out their phone, maybe make a phone call, and some other annoying habits would ensue.
Well, I'll be clear. I didn't actually Google it because I was afraid that someone's going to come to my house and go like, why are you looking up the Russian embassy?
Seriously?
I used an incognito window just to be sure and, rerouted my server from my DNS address.
I always worry that if you Google terrorist attacks or something, that people are going to knock on my door. I'm almost afraid to do that. I'm afraid to read articles about Jared from Subway. I'm panicky about the government. I don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, what are the keywords that they're scanning behind the scenes?
Exactly.
And then is the troll farmer out there actually doing something to set me up?
Every chance he gets. Now, speaking of the troll farmer, we had the first half where they basically take to underground, and they have the van that drives into the car carrier, which I think we as avid TV fans probably all saw that one coming, right? That escape.
As soon as the car carrier was in front of the van going into the tunnel, it was like, yep, they're going up the back.
Yep. And I'm kind of disappointed in the FBI and Ressler in particular, because do you not watch television, man? Come on. This is 101 right here. But outside of that, it was I like the first half where they're kind of on the lam. There are several moments, and of course, every time Liz asks a question about her mother, something happens where Red doesn't have to answer it. I really respected that. I like that they steal a Porsche and basically go to this poor guy's house, and they run into Marta and lock her in the bathroom. And Red is so charming as always, which we'll get to more when we talk about individual characters. But at the end of the episode, when Red gets through the barrier, because they figure out what they're doing, and Red gets through, and Liz is still trapped. So Red makes a call to Ressler and says, I'll trade you the Blacklister, the guy that just got me out, and his entire crew that just got me out of there. Just if you give me your word that you're going to go easy on Liz, or you're going to give her the benefit of the doubt, I found this, as much as I love Red, really cold. I mean, this guy just saved your life, basically.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think this gives us information into Red's character that Liz is still his number one priority above all else.
Mm-hmm.
That he's willing to actually give up somebody he's had on retainer for 3 years just for a simple, I trust you, Ressler, the guy that chased me for most of my career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to trust you to actually look out for my number one asset.
Well, it definitely says Red will burn a bridge to protect Liz, and that's absolutely true. I guess my question would be, if when he left, if Bo Chang hadn't said, we're done, we're cutting ties, basically, do you think Red would have still turned him in?
No, I don't think so. I think Red's still a very much an honest bargaining person.
Mm-hmm.
So if he didn't give his word, I'm pretty sure then Red wouldn't have given him up.
Bo Chang, you're your own worst enemy, man. Your own worst enemy. Are you ready?
I had a question for you before we got into the characters, because I did read an article, not because I thought it was a trolling article, but then as I read it, I was like, oh, it's a trolling article. But they use things like DuPont Circle. And when you think about Washington, D.C. and how the grid is laid out, and they do have these kind of, spidery streets that come off of a circle area in Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
and then you compare it to the grid map of New York City where they do shoot the show, I'm wondering, and maybe we'll just pose this out to the listening audience, and you can give us a shout out on our feedback page, but, does it bother you that it's not Washington, D.C. when they shoot these shows?
Yeah,
does it take you out of the scene? I guess that, that when they're sitting there and Red's coming through that perimeter, that's not DuPont Circle because it doesn't even look like a circle. Does that bother you, or do you just kind of like, yeah, whatever?
Not me. I don't really care. I mean, honestly, it's television. I've kind of, L.A. has been, Georgia, for crying out loud. I mean, you just kind of get used to this is television. They do the best they can. Obviously, they're shooting the show wherever they're shooting the show, and we just kind of have to buy into it. I think if they shoot it well enough, and I think Blacklist is one that is shot well enough, you can pretty much buy into wherever they're saying it takes place in.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's like, I don't care that it's in Washington, D.C., as long as, in which they did, right, when they come back from commercial break and they're doing like those sweeping pan shots.
Yeah.
They had one of the Washington Monument. So as long as you throw those in there to just remind me, hey, yeah, this is supposed to be D.C., not New York, then I'm totally fine, because we're all smart. We know it's being filmed in New York. And we know that a lot of the sights and sounds might be familiar to New Yorkers that live in New York,
mm-hmm.
right? 7 million plus people that are out there in the number one TV market. I guess the question's more for them. Does it ruin their enjoyment of the show when it's like, oh, that's around the street from my house, yo?
I think, they all talk like Stallone for some reason. Hey, yo,
totally do.
Why is this being shot in my house? Hey, yo. If Times Square popped up, I would probably be taken aback. But outside of that, nah, not really.
Yeah, if it's in the boroughs or whatever, it's totally fine. It's like any other neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
The other question on scenery I had to ask you was when they were at Bo Chang's house, and then the FBI breaks in at the end of the episode
mm-hmm.
when they played No Harm. Such a great song.
Oh, it was a great song. Great music in this show. I want to talk about music, but after your question.
Did the front of that house look exactly like Liz's house from the first season?
I thought it was Liz's house. I did. I'm like, is this the address? Is that where it goes? It goes to Liz's house. She went home? Because it seems like a bad idea of Liz. Just bad plan.
That was my one nitpick of the episode, because when they're storming the house, I was like, are they storming the house to find Bo Chang, or are they storming the house to find Liz?
It definitely looked the same. But I think when you get into an inner city, and you know this, you live in Chicago, you get into an inner city and you get in like those compacted units.
Yeah, the brownstones all look the same.
They all look the same. So, it's definitely not a nitpick. It was just kind of a funny coincidence, because I thought the same thing. I'm like, why did she go home? That seems dumb. She seems so much smarter than that. Why would she go there?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just me. Okay, I feel better.
Yeah, and before we go to characters, music. I got to talk about music. So I do think the show that comes after the Blacklist, is an absolutely brilliant compliment to the Blacklist, because they're both fun action shows. I think the Player's trying a little bit harder to have a complicated storyline when it doesn't need to, but that's beside the point. Fun show. I like both shows. Not as much as Blacklist, but I like both shows. The music, though, I mean, I'm watching The Player, and it almost sounds 80s half the time, the music cues that they use. And then I watch The Blacklist, because I actually watched them in reverse order, because I couldn't watch it live. And I was kind of like eating dinner, so I wanted to watch The Player first, because if I'm watching The Blacklist, I want to pay attention. The Player, I don't care if I miss some stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I did it in reverse order. So I watched the player, and then I watched the Blacklist, and I'm so astonished how differently the song styles are. Like the music and the songs used in Blacklist is phenomenal. And then I watched the player, and I'm like, you guys could borrow their music designer or orchestrator, whatever, because it desperately needs it. It's just, I didn't realize how important the music is to the show until I watched those two shows back to back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so insider knowledge for all of our listeners who've been with us for the last season and this season. Aaron, when we picked out the music for the podcast, is like, no synthesizers.
I hate synthesizers, man. And
So
player uses them a lot.
Yeah, I think that's your issue, is that it's that 80s kind of synthesizer drum on the keyboard that kind of just gets under your skin a little bit.
It does. I mean, I like the show. Don't get me wrong. Wesley Snipes is phenomenal. But yeah, that's definitely a bug. And I just needed to give a shout out because the Blacklist continuously, and I don't think I realized how much until I watched those two shows back to back, how great the music selection, both music and song selection is in that show.
Yeah, music is almost a character in and of itself in the Blacklist. And I think John Bokenkamp really prides himself on that because I believe John does mostly curating.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That I actually didn't know. So that's awesome. Kudos. Characters. You ready to talk about some characters?
Absolutely.
Whew. Man, a lot of stuff happened. I didn't realize how much actually happened until I started writing this down. I'm like, wow, it's
a ton.
It's a ton. First up, Aram, whose name I got correct this week. You're welcome. You're welcome. He thinks Keen is innocent. So I guess my question, and that's really the scope of what his character went through this episode, was convincing everybody that he believes Keen's innocent. And he wants to protect her livelihood. I mean, what does he want to protect exactly?
Her innocence,
Her
I guess.
innocence,
Just the fact that she's such a good agent and a good profiler in his eyes, that he's like, this is a partner that I want to work with, therefore I'm going to do everything I can to prove her innocence.
My question to you is, based on what Aram is saying throughout the episode, do you believe her to be technically innocent since she actually did point blank kill Connolly?
I mean, it depends on how you want to frame it up, right? So if you're saying, did she kill the AG in cold blood? 100% absolutely. And then when you think about what the FBI is to find justice, at the end of the day, there's no way Liz is going to get out of that. I mean, even if they say, yeah, the Cabal did what they did, they totally framed what they were going to do, it still doesn't mean that she can just pull up a gun and shoot somebody, which was the whole thing of 24 with Kiefer in his character and Jack. It was how far above the law can you go, but Jack always reined himself in, even when he was face-to-face with the president and trying to impeach him, and do I impeach him or do I kill him? And he literally had to make that decision in one of the season finales. So it's that same concept here. Liz crossed the line. So does she will have to go to jail for that at some point.
She didn't have to go to jail. Come on, this is TV.
Okay, community service.
I mean, Jack Bauer threw a lady out a window, and he still, he wasn't going to get arrested.
But she was a bad guy.
So was Connolly.
But Connolly wasn't a bad guy. Connolly was only doing things based on the direction
Badly.
of others.
Which were bad. That makes him a bad guy.
Are they bad, though? Do they break laws?
The Cabal?
You don't know that they broke any laws.
I'm pretty sure they're bad. I think everybody would agree that he was a bad guy.
Okay.
You don't think so?
I think he's doing his job. I mean, I think that you could say the entire government of the United States is bad. They're all corrupt. But are they breaking any laws, or are they just using the system that they invented in order to get forward what they want to get forward?
I just want to tell the NSA, I do not agree with his synopsis of the government. I firmly believe you are all doing what's best for our country. Thank you.
And some of that might have to cross a line somewhere.
Apparently. Well, I had a hard time buying the she's innocent argument, but I do like your Jack Bauer analogy because A, I love 24, and B, I would love to see Liz go on the lam and then just start shooting people in the limbs. I think that would be fantastic. Let's make that happen, people.
Yeah, using lamp wires in order to simulate jumper cables to torture people.
Oh, like that 24 episode where he's like interrogating a character and his wife, and he just shoots the guy's wife in the leg. That's one of my favorite moments of television ever, and I want Liz to do something similar. Samar, she had, I think, a great arc this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because she kind of sets up what I believe to be a season-long issue with Ressler. She doesn't trust Ressler's dangerous instincts, and kind of busts him on his role in Liz's escape. What do you think we're playing with here? Do you think Samar is going to be a contrasting force with Ressler this season?
I didn't know what to think, actually, because I kept going back to something you said in the season 3 preview podcast episode, where it was like little pieces are being put in there to lead Ressler down a point to the point where he can't get out from under the Cabal's thumb. Because as you watch this, you were like, okay, they're totally going toe to toe. They're vying for the chair. You know, they want to see who can actually be the boss and in charge. And up until the end of the episode, and then they get in the van, and then they're like commiserating, like they're compadres, like nothing happened, and I just didn't shoot a guy in the head, and you didn't even say thank you for it. So it seemed like they built that up, and then it kind of stopped when they got in the van at the end of the episode, where they were back to being okay.
Well, I don't know about that. I think they were just on the same page in terms of, all right, now I kind of have an idea where Liz is headed. I didn't get that because she did approach him after the brilliant headshot, which was probably my favorite moment of the episode. I actually rewound and watched that like 3 times. I love that. Where he just, comes out, shoots a guy in the head. But she did approach him afterward and said now she's scared of his instincts. And I like that. I think we're setting Samar up to have a larger arc this season where she's going to go up against Ressler because Cooper I don't think can be involved at this point. And you've got Liz already out of the FBI. You've got Aram, who's basically on the Liz's innocent side. And you've got Ressler, who is desperate to bring her down because I think we're going to talk about why a little bit later, but I think embarrassment might be a factor.
What do you think about Ressler? And you just said something there about, trust the instincts. Now, as the audience, we already know that he's a little bit off kilter because of the pill addiction scenario, because of Mako Tanita, and literally him gutting him in that same exact style.
And his girlfriend or fiance or whatever, yeah.
Right, and getting revenge from that perspective. So we already know kind of what Ressler's made up of. So is this Samar kind of catching up to the audience?
I think this is Samar setting up for people that have, like you said earlier, you alluded to earlier, new viewers. I think this is Samar setting up that Ressler does have a dangerous side. He's not Tommy Lee Jones, as much as I alluded to that a couple times. In The Fugitive, Tommy Lee Jones's character, Gerard, is very much a by-the-book, by-the-numbers FBI agent. I think she's saying he is that to a degree, but he's also got a side that isn't necessarily safe. And I think she's setting that up for the audience.
I agree.
Yeah. Now, CIA Director Peter Katchopoulos, I hope I said that right. It was really hard to catch because it's on, a 1936 television when he says it. But he does make an appearance. David Strahan makes an appearance, and he's being threatened. He's exposed. How do you feel about the direction we're taking the director?
I really liked it because it shows that the Cabal has either a greater reach or there's something bigger than the Cabal that could be in play that we still don't know about. Because this still goes back to the whole, who bombed that room in Russia back in, I think it was 82, that set off the whole Berlin saga in the first place.
You're like an encyclopedia. Man,
I mean,
you just remember stuff.
I love it because it just shows that, when you think you have an answer, there's another question around the corner. And those are the types of shows that I like investing my time in because it shows me that the people that created the show have really thought out the plan versus just throwing stuff in there to make things happen in order to go, oh, crap, we didn't write a cliffhanger for next week's episode, so we got to write a cliffhanger, and then we got to now flush out story that fits that cliffhanger.
So back to the director. Do you like his direction? Do you think he's going to play captive to the Cabal, basically? I mean, where he is essentially their puppet, and he's constantly going to be on the brink of death throughout the season?
Well, and he's not been on the show that much, so you've got to remember that he actually had that conversation face-to-face with Reddington at the end of Luther Braxton, and then he has this conversation with Liz face-to-face. So he's literally come face-to-face with the people he's supposed to be capturing, and he's let them go. And he has a history with Katerina Rostova to some regard. So when this happened with I guess we can't call him Mr. Solomon, can we?
We'll get to Mr. Solomon in a second, sure.
Okay. Eddie Gathegi's character. So when he comes into the picture, the first thing that went into my mind is, wouldn't it be interesting if the director now has to rely on Red and Liz in order to reclaim his status with the Cabal or reclaim his status with the country? It would be an interesting twist.
I like this better than what I thought the alternative would be, which is, because I knew at the end of last season, when the Fulcrum comes out and the Cabal realized that, well, you screwed up. You said it was a bluff, and it wasn't a bluff. I knew that storyline had to pay off. And thank you guys for actually paying it off quick. Because if it would have been like a whole season and it wasn't addressed, I would have been really irritated as a fan. because there's no way it doesn't have blowback. You know what I mean? Because you made a gamble that did not pay off. You know, as the director, you gambled on everybody's lives and you screwed it up. So I thank you for paying that off. I was so happy with that. But I like that they didn't just kill him off, which is what I thought was going to happen in that moment when Matthias, that's what they called, that's the only name that actually, Matthias, sorry.
Yeah.
When he has this conversation, I thought for sure, well, the director's going to die. And I thought that was kind of like the predictable way to go. You know, we'll kill him off and then he'll be replaced by someone else that they can trust more or something. But the fact that they left him in play means that I think we're going to get a lot more from him this season. I think he's going to keep popping up, and his role is going to continually twist and morph into something different throughout the season.
I agree.
I'm so excited. Speaking of Matthias, whatever, in series reviews, show reviews, and stuff like that, we keep seeing him referred to as Mr. Solomon, but I never heard Mr. Solomon come up in the episode. I watched it twice, never heard it. Did you?
Agree. Yeah, I never heard it once. It's so much so that I was like, crap, can I say Mr. Solomon on Twitter on Thursday night?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to give something away if it was like a secret what his name was going to be.
But everybody keeps referring to him as that. So I assume press releases and whatnot, that's what came out. But the character, we're going to call him, is it Matthias?
I just call him Mr. S.
Okay, Mr. S. I liked him. This guy I loved. And for those that aren't sure who that is the gentleman that basically talks to Peter, the CIA director, and threatens him, and steals a baby. He doesn't just steal the baby. He caresses it, holds it. It's like, oh, their heads are like eggshells, and then kisses it. God, what a great threat. That was one of my favorite threats on television ever. Loved it.
Awesome.
Their little heads are like eggshells. And by the way, I'm probably going to use that at some party when some parent is not taking care of their kid. I'm going to pick it up, be real sweet, and I'm going to use that line. See if it gets me arrested. Great line. And then also threatens Dembe, basically. And basically kidnaps Dembe for some unknown reason. This guy is my new favorite bad guy. Loved him.
I couldn't think they would ever be able to top Peter Stormare's Berlin, but man, there was just so much craftiness to it. It's like, I want to call him the anti-Red. He is Red in a completely different way. It's just so much fun to watch.
When you have a bad guy, and you're obviously setting up somebody who is a force to be reckoned with. This is the operative that they trust to take care of their really serious business. You assume the Cabal. They never actually say he works for the Cabal, right? That I'm aware of?
Correct.
Okay. But we have to assume that it's the Cabal that he works for. This is the guy that they entrust to handle all their business. And you need somebody that's going to make an entrance. So you need, when that first episode, if he's going to have a multi-series arc, you need him to just show up and make an instant impression. And man, by the end of the episode, I want him to live for at least 3 seasons.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Michael Watkins for directing this episode, because the things that Eddie Gathegi did with this character that were just so amazing was like those close-up shots where you got in his face and he's like, "Hey, Peter, you know what I mean?" And then he's got this giant grin on his face, like, ha, 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 ha. And like, you don't get that if you don't have that close-up shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could shoot that same thing and have them both be in there in a 2-shot type scenario. So the fact that we have to, that Michael chose to focus on his face because his facial expressions sell the character so well, even to the point where he's eating at the end of the episode. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. I got to pull out this bone that I just got in my mouth. And he just keeps on going with the conversation. Mm-hmm. Just fabulous way that they framed his face and made sure that the facial expressions and his emotions of his character also came out with his words.
When you have an actor that you can trust with those kind of character tics, and I don't know if that was improv or if that was actually scripted, I have no idea. But the way he pulled it off, magic. It's just, you need that when you're trying to establish a new bad guy. And whichever one of the Johns wrote the dialogue, you're dancing at the end of a razor blade, and every breath that you draw is at our discretion. I want that on a T-shirt, and I want it on a T-shirt now.
Absolutely.
Oh, man, loved it. The guy is so evil, he put a nerve agent, or he says he put a nerve agent that's going to last 3 weeks into a baby. Who does that, you sick, twisted genius man of you? I don't... Do you think he actually poisoned the kid?
That's the that is really the best part of this character, because did he do it or did he say he did it? And because he said he did it, he can convince people that he actually did it. And I think that's why I call him the anti-Red after this episode, because that's the same thing Red does. He says something and you have to wonder, did he actually do it or not? So I got to go along with it.
What is your, so you're going along with it. You think, yeah, he did.
Gosh, it was so hard because I was like, they're not going to do that on this show. I mean, they didn't do ball peen hammers on bunnies. They're not going to actually say that they ingested something into a child, would they? Would the network allow that, even if it's just dialogue? So then you're like trying to put all that in, and it's like, well, maybe he did. At least he was nice. He said it's 3 weeks from now when that's going to start happening.
It just seems like Dembe, in my opinion, as a viewer, I'm like, man, Dembe really trusts that this guy actually did this thing without any actual evidence. So I guess if you're Dembe, you're in Dembe's shoes, which I'm sure are magnificent shoes. If you're in his shoes, do you just assume that he's serious, or do you think Dembe breathed deeply just because he wanted to see where this was going? Do you think he thinks that it's at his granddaughter is actually poisoned, or that he just wants to see where the rabbit hole leads?
Well, you can look at it from two perspectives. So perspective number one, and I guess we'll transition into Dembe's character with this.
Mm-hmm.
So the first perspective would be, I am loyal first and foremost to Reddington. And so therefore I do have to figure out where this is going to go. So I'm going to play along because I have to be able to make sure I can keep Reddington safe. On the second side of the coin, what a great juxtaposition, because we get introduced to the fact that now Dembe is both a father and a grandfather. And if we look at the parental, uncle, whatever relationship we want to talk about between Red and Liz and how that's been playing out, if Red is always looking out for his number one asset in Liz, then shouldn't Dembe be looking out for his number one asset, which is his family? And it's all tied to that family dynamic. So in that case, I think Dembe does believe him if you look at it from that character angle perspective. And I think that's really what the Blacklist does, is it gives you two answers to every question. The question is which side are you going to land on when you're done with the episode? And then that's the journey you go on for the season, and two people can have completely different experiences with a Blacklist show.
Man, I love the predicament that he's put in, because I didn't know where that was going. And those are my favorite kind of subplots, when you have where you just can't figure out where are they going with this kid. And then you see Dembe show up and you're like, well, obviously they're trying to get to Dembe, but why? And then, the trick is to put him under. I don't know, but I honestly believe that I would like the baby to actually be poisoned. And I know that sounds awful. People that don't don't stop listening to the podcast just because I said that. Hear me out. Network television tends to play it safe most of the time. So generally when this kind of thing happens, when you have people threatening children, animals, handicapped people, elderly people, generally those threats are unrealistic. They aren't actually going to pay off. They're almost always bluffs. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, network TV, sure.
Yeah, and I love the idea, and don't get me wrong, I don't want the baby to die. I'm not sadistic, but the fact that you actually, if they pay it off and they take it seriously, like, yes, this baby was actually in danger. Dembe's not a dum-dum. He knows that this is going to cost him his granddaughter's life if he doesn't cooperate. I love that there is a very real threat that shows that the Cabal is so sick and twisted, they would actually kill a child if they needed to, instead of making us think that, well, they wouldn't actually go that far. I want to think they would go that far. I
absolutely think they would go that far. I mean,
the fact that I don't as of yet,
Peter, but he comes into Peter's office and he's like, "Hey, you know what? You're kind of done. I'm here because you screwed up." I mean, the fact that they would actually do that for the person that was supposed to be kind of the lead of the Cabal, then they pretty much be willing to do anything.
Well, you would think, but because it's television and network television, you think kids are always off limits. They're not actually ever going to hurt the kid. But the idea that they would actually poison a baby, and literally poison a baby, that to me is bold. And I've said that word a couple times because I love bold television. We don't get enough of it. I want the baby to be poisoned. I'm sorry, people. I don't want it to die. I want the antidote to get there and everything else, but I definitely don't want this to be a bluff. That would really disappoint me, I think.
Yeah, and Drop-Off probably came over and did something to the panda, and that's why he had to get the panda, so that the panda was close to the baby to ingest the smell.
Now, what do you think about, speaking of Jack Bauer, Dembe pulls his best Jack Bauer impression and just goes badass and takes everybody out just getting to this guy. What do you think about, we said we wanted more from Dembe. Man, I've said it, I don't know how many times, I want more Dembe, and that's pretty exciting Dembe right there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how believable it was because he just came in and like walked through like no problem. But at least we can say this, it was consistent because you go back to the episode with the Germans and the shootout with Red and Tom, and he was able to just basically stand there without any cover and still take everybody out without getting hit once. So the scene itself was awesome, of course, because it's just cool. But the question is it realistic at the same time that he's able to get that far in order to get all the way up to where Mr. S is?
Yes, he's Dembe. Are you not watching the same show I'm watching? It's totally plausible. I mean, we couldn't do it. We'd be dead before we even got in the parking lot, but Dembe can do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten past the doorman.
So it brings us to, I mean, in our profiling question of the week is why, what do they want from Dembe? So do you have any theories? Like, what do they want to do with him?
Well, they clearly want to get to Red. I don't think
yeah,
they have anything specific with Dembe. I mean, that's the easy answer. But maybe there's something with Dembe's past that they need to dig into because there's a new story. It's like the new thing that's going to come out of this, maybe the second half of season 3, because they're talking, maybe the first 9 episodes is this whole, exonerate or get Liz to a certain point by the end of season 3, which is where the Mr. S storyline, I think, would probably end. And then it would have a new storyline, and maybe that new storyline has to do with maybe something in Dembe's past that's tied to Red in order to get closer to Red.
I'm going to go on...
Because if Liz is number 1, Dembe's definitely is number 2.
I'm going to go in the opposite way. I'm going to say, because I think Red, to get to Red is what everybody is assuming. I'm going to say it's something else. I'm going to say that they need Dembe for some other reason. It's not necessarily to get to Red. Maybe it's to get to Liz, but and through Red or something. But I don't think it specifically has to do with Red. Or I know I'm probably wrong because all common sense would say it definitely has to do with Red. But I think I don't know, man. The writers have taken several chances, and I think this might be another one.
Yeah, or because the entire formula of season 3 has been turned on its head compared to the past. Maybe it's a whole new concept that we don't even know about. It's a whole direction change for the show. That's what I'm banking on. Mostly because then I'll look cool if it comes true. Right. You know what I mean? That's really all I'm going for. Cooper. We've got only a couple guys left. Cooper is the honorable man, we thought. You think? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he came up and said, yeah, I told her to run. I'm good. It's almost like he doesn't lie. You can't say he's necessarily honorable because he did do some things that were not in the right frame of mind because he looked out for himself, but at least he's truthful in what he presents. Well, he's honorable. I mean, his wife was put on the spot, and he could have easily, thrown her under the bus and gotten out of this or something. It was really all Charlene, man. I had nothing to do with it. Let me out. He could have been that guy. I thought he was honorable, and he handled it. He admitted his complicitness, and then he has that moment at the end where he and Ressler kind of discuss the complicitness. Like they were both kind of responsible for Connolly getting shot. What I really love about it is that, much like he was with Liz in the first 2 seasons, kind of being the not only task force leader, but also kind of like pseudo parent, kind of guide, kind of coach, leader type of deal. Mm-hmm. He has that same conversation with Ressler when he's like, "Yeah, I'm giving you this information. What you do with it now is your choice." He's like literally coaching him through this position that he's now in as the task force leader. I really like Cooper. I'm curious, do you have any ideas what they're going to do with him this season? Do you have any theories? That is a really good question. The only thing that I could come up with is that maybe he's like Red for Ressler, where he's going to be at home. Maybe he gets reinstated at some point. I don't know how that's possible, but maybe he's like at home and Ressler confides in him in order to move stuff along. I like that. I could see that. That's good. I tried to figure out, because I can't see them putting Cooper back in the FBI. At least not right away. I mean, I guess Ressler's boss, is in charge of the criminal division, could see him being cleared essentially as, he's fine. He can take over again. But I don't know if they're going to do that. I think they're having a lot of fun with Ressler being the guy. Yeah, I mean, that was our thing. If we want Ressler to be this different character, this deeper version of Ressler this season, if you put Cooper back in the chair, then that kind of takes away from his ability to grow. Ressler's ability to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I almost like to not. Maybe he's part of the FBI, but maybe he's not part of the task force.
Some interesting.
Maybe he becomes Revan, and Revan gets bumped up because the AG is gone.
There you go. There's an idea. There's a lot of different ways they can go with him. I'm really curious to see where Cooper goes this season. Now, how about Ressler? Martin Riggs, as I like to call him. Because that lethal weapon shot he took was badass. Where that drug peddler, whatever, has Samar, gun to her head, and I never even thought that he's going to take the shot. I'm like, well, we're going to get one of those TV talking him down things. Nope. He just pulls in a little bit, pulls back out, shoots him in the head. What do you think about our new Ressler, our new Billy Badass, kind of pissed off at Liz, FBI agent?
I don't know what to trust his instincts or not. I like it. I was really shocked that he took the shot. I think that it also shows that it gives him two stances again, and this is what I love about the Blacklist. It gives him the stance of, hey, Samar, I'm going to do anything to protect you because I want you on my team from a team leader perspective. But he also is like, I'm just going to take this bad guy out because I can, and I know I can, regardless of what's going to happen to anybody else.
Man, he is a dangerous foe this season. Honestly, I really like the new direction. I'm so glad we totally abandoned the whole drug addiction thing. We're back to basics with him. We're seeing more of, and actually, I think this is the best performance he's given the entire series.
Oh, by far. I mean, maybe Mako Taneda would be a close second, but yeah, this was really top notch for him.
Yeah, I mean, Diego, nice job, man. Thumbs up. You can't see it, but it's an audio thumbs up. Yay. What do you think about in terms of how he feels about his role in Connolly's deal? Do you think it's embarrassment? Do you think he feels responsible? I mean, where do you think, from what you gathered in the episode, where do you feel his opinion lies?
I think he's harder on himself than he leads on to be, because even if he let Liz go, he doesn't know that Liz is going to go shoot the AG. So I think he always looks at himself as being because I want to be with the law, right? I want to be the person that people can trust. I want to follow the letter of the law as best I can. So therefore, if something bad happens because I didn't follow the law, I take it more heavily on myself than I probably should. Because she could have just went and got a pizza, He doesn't know.
I am the law. Sorry, there's another Stallone throwback. That's all I kept thinking while you're talking. Yeah, I like that. I really, my personal opinion is while it was playing on, I've kind of got the impression that he was more embarrassed. Like he felt betrayed to an extent. I don't think it's so much that Connolly got killed. It's that he put his faith in her and she betrayed him. So I feel like there's a certain amount of vengeance in his eyes that is going to pay off throughout the season. Now, I think he's going to try to give her the benefit of the doubt, but right now he's so fueled by anger and betrayal, I don't think it's going to be prevalent for a while.
And is he betrayed by Liz, or is he betrayed by his own feelings?
No, by Liz. No, I don't think it's a romantic thing. Well, it might be because he was starting to fall for her. Maybe you got that a little bit. But I really think it's more, I trusted you, I let you go, and then you went and did this horrible thing, and you're not the person I think you are, and you might even be a Russian spy. I mean, how stupid am I? Is kind of the feeling I got from his demeanor, his presentation, all that.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Liz, we got two more. Our two favorites. Liz, poor Liz, because there is no Tom this week. There's no Tom at all. We have no Tom to talk about. Poor Liz. She's branded a terrorist. What the hell? I mean, she just shot a guy, and now all of a sudden she's a terrorist. It's just so sad. And she's forced to be a blonde, which we all know brunettes are better.
What? She's not forced. She chose to dye her hair.
She's forced. She has to go on the lam. People on the lam always have to dye their hair.
She could have been jet black. She could have been red. She chose blonde.
Red would have been, I think, a nice touch. Honestly, a little on the nose, but I would have laughed pretty hard at it. And apparently, she's a spitting image of her mom, even taking Red's breath away. What did you think about that scene when she came out and she had her blonde hair? Man, Red looked. I don't know. The shippers are going to be happy with that scene, I think.
Well, the shippers are going to be happy with that scene because if you look at the scene on face value, it's clearly like, it took my breath away. Oh my gosh, you're stunning. Or, oh my gosh, you're stunning because you remind me of the person I did love, which was your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Or, of course, like we were talking about, when you see a scene and you look at it a certain way with a certain point of view, immediately when I saw the mirrors, I was like, oh, it's like looking in the mirror for the mother theory.
Dun, dun, dun.
Even tweeted it out. I was like, hashtag mother theory. Because I was like, it's like literally he's staring at, or she is staring at herself in the mirror in that regard.
Now you're just being
think
dumb.
That way.
Now you're just being dumb. Listen to our season 3 episode if you want to know how nutty he is being right now. That's just dumb. I think he saw someone he used to be in love with is what it was. I think he used to be in love with her mother, and she looks just like her mother, and it took his breath away. Like, wow, I am so looking at the spitting image because she's not his daughter. I think there's some kind of tie. We don't know what that is, but I definitely don't think, obviously she's not his daughter. They've said about 10 times she's not. So I think he's looking at her like, that's the woman I loved right there in front of me. Holy cow, you look just like the woman I loved.
Yep. I think that's the plausible explanation.
The reasonable one?
The reasonable one, yes, the reasonable one.
Stupid Troy theory? Yeah, that's the reasonable one. Liz mentions her mother several times. What do you think we're building up to? Because she asks several questions about her mother. It's definitely setting it up for people that are new to the show.
Well, I think this is clearly the mother season, right? There's one way or another we're going to get an answer of, is she alive? Does she exist? Is she really a ghost in the wind like the old stories used to say? This is really going to be where we actually come up with who she is, and then going back to an Alias throwback, will we find out that her mother is actually part of the Cabal?
Do you get paid every time you say Lost or Alias? I mean, do you get a kickback of some sort?
Eisendress sends me a check every week.
How much is it good money? I mean, because you do it a lot, so it must be good.
Yeah, I watched it 3 times. I like the show.
The entire series?
3 times.
I mean, I watched it. I guess I did watch it twice, but yeah, wow. By the way, Rachel Nichols always deserved a spinoff. I'm just saying.
She did. It was called Continuum, and it's very much similar.
Well, I'm looking forward to where they go with the mom concept. I definitely think they're paying it off this season, as you alluded to. I don't know if we're going to see her anytime soon, but I definitely think before this season's out, we're definitely going to be introduced to Liz's mom.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And we find out that Liz is kind of a minor celebrity right now. I mean, people are looking at her as, in the criminal element, the criminal world, they're looking up to her.
Oh my gosh, I guess I'm you.
Yeah. Do you think that? Well, I think so. I'm asking if you agree. I personally see that as they are building Liz into be Little Red, like a rapper almost, where she is becoming Red. She is taking on her role in his organization, and eventually to maybe even take it over. I don't know.
Okay, so if you go with some of the theories that are out there that he's been this deep undercover agent the entire time, trying to expose the Cabal or what have you, wouldn't it be interesting? And I'm not saying that Spader is going to get killed off the show, so I don't want any hate mail in my box. But wouldn't it be interesting if for some reason that he's been compromised because of him coming out, that he's literally grooming her to become the replacement undercover agent?
I don't think it's an agent thing. I think it's an actual... I think he has an agenda. We don't know what the full scope of that agenda is just yet. And I think he's subtly grooming her to be able to either play second chair or take over for him should anything happen to him. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, it could be. I could see that.
Yeah. Now, the ending. And I do want to stress that I didn't Google it, so I didn't even think of it until it actually happened. Did you see Russian Asylum coming?
Didn't really think of it that way. The first thing because it happened so fast, the first thing I thought of was like, oh my gosh, Tom is going to be waiting there for her. And then it was like, well, he's on the boat. Did he really move it just a couple docks down? Where are we going to go with this? Like, is she going to meet up with maybe Aram? Has got something set up for her? Because Aram was all kind of like coy, like, that's a shame that she got away with Mr. Reddington at the beginning of the episode. So maybe Aram had a switcheroo for her. I never would have thought Russian embassy without Googling it before it actually happened.
Me either, man. I love that twist. And now you've got everybody thinking, wow, she is really a spy. Do you think Russia would actually protect her?
No, I think that's what we're going to potentially see happen now, because if you think about Katerina Rostova and what she meant to the Russians, are the Russians looking for Katerina, for something that happened way back in the day or what have you, maybe with this bombing in Moscow that Berlin was involved with? And when you look at that perspective, maybe now it's actually a bad situation that she's actually there because they're going to either kill her or use her to find Katerina.
I think they're definitely going to use her to find Katerina. And I think this is a way to get her off U.S. soil because she's now protected. And if you don't understand how asylum works, just for those that aren't embroiled in politics, if basically a Russian consulate on U.S. soil is considered Russian soil. So if you step forward in the gates and you get asylum, you're protected by whatever that government is, and the U.S. cannot touch you. Same thing happens if we're overseas. If you walk into a U.S. embassy in like Syria or something, you're on U.S. soil. So you're technically protected by whatever that country's laws are. So they can actually get her out of the country and take her back to Russia if they so desire. It's kind of why we can't touch Edward Snowden because he's protected by Russia, only he's actually in Russia. But if he was protected by Russia and in the U.S. at a Russian consulate, we couldn't touch him.
Yeah, it'd be declaring an act of war if you actually moved forward without proper negotiation tactics.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting twist that I never saw coming. And once again, kudos, man. They are completely taking this show in different directions this season.
Yeah, and if you listen to the Daniel Knopf interview, our last episode, BLE 30, then you want to take a listen to that because what we found out from Daniel is that he's always brought in to write episode 2 and the episode right before the finale because those are actually the harder episodes to write. Not saying that John and John didn't have a hard time writing this episode, but he said it's more challenging to follow up the premiere and set up the season finale. And so now that we have the situation with her being on Russian soil, I think it'll be really interesting to see what Daniel does with next week's episode.
Oh, man. I can't wait for next week. I'm really pumped for. And to finish it up, with our characters, Reddington, there's a couple things we got from him. One, he admits he didn't really know what to expect from releasing the Fulcrum, which that kind of took me by surprise. I figured he would have had a plan how that was going to play out. You?
Maybe. Yeah, because it kind of like skirted it, right? She's like, did you know that he was going to come forward and have this press conference? And he kind of just shrugged it off, like he was almost expecting it to happen.
No.
But he also had the look on his face like, oh, crap, no, I didn't expect that to happen. So I don't know how to read him at that point.
No, he specifically said he didn't know like how it was going to pay off.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he did like mumble no as he walked over to the wine. Correct.
Yeah, he did say that. So I was kind of taken aback, and I fully believe him. I think he wasn't sure how this was going to play out, but that was his card, and he was playing it just to see what happened. And I really, really like that. Now, do you think the world at large, I mean, as the series goes on, are they going to believe what came out because of the Fulcrum, all the information that came out exposing this organization?
Well, I mean, we talked about this before. Like, if you're just an average Joe sitting in the house watching the news at the end of the night, you believe what you're told, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you absolutely would say it seemed like, oh, okay, well, yeah, CIA, totally get it. Super secret, understand. President said that you can speak now, fine, totally get it. I believe it. I mean, the whole press conference was a stroke of genius from quell the American public from this information, and then it makes everybody that is releasing the information look like tabloid writers instead of newspaper reporters, and they get completely discredited.
It's gonna be curious where that goes this season because I gotta think that there's still journalists investigating this. We're gonna get a little bit more as we go on. We got a little bit of Red story time in Cambodia this time as Red talks about being trapped in a mine. Did you get anything out of that story?
A little bit. I mean, it wasn't like any one of the previous ones where it was more epic or grandeur. Nothing like, feeling the sun on my face and smoking a cigar or the Mexican fish in a cave. But when you think about the story here, I thought the one thing that he's focused on is this, find your peace. Mm-hmm. So where can you find a way to clear your head? Because if you don't have a clear head, you can't think of what the next move, let alone the next 10 moves, needs to be. And I think that was really tied back into the fact that he didn't realize that the director was going to do this press conference. So now that he did the press conference, now he has to basically clear his mind and kind of reset the chessboard.
I like that. That's a good analogy, man. Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, every once in a while Troy gets it. You know what I mean? And then he'll say something stupid, like his mom theory. And then everything is forgotten. Right. Everything's forgotten. I love the little moment. We got a lot of little Red moments. But really, we saw a Red that was almost a little panicked in parts. I mean, when he's trying to protect Liz, there's a little bit of panic there. But so that was nice touch. I mean, Spader brought a little something different to that. When we had Tiffany kind of ratting him out, we got a little bit of not so much. Red's version of panic, where he had to think on his feet. We got to see that. how he solves these problems when he doesn't have it all fully orchestrated ahead of time. Love those little touches. And when they have to lock I assume it's a housekeeper or something, Martha, in the bathroom. And,
yeah.
And he's very sweet to her, and he says, your hair, the way it frames your face. So those are the little red touches I love, because I'm kidnapping you, but it's not so bad, right? It's kind of charming. I like those little touches. Red, seemingly, like we talked about when we were talking about Liz, has some deep feelings for Liz's mom. I just want to bring it up one more time now that we're talking about Red. Do you see that as he loved her, or just that he was close to her in some way?
The reaction, I would say love.
Okay. I'm same boat. I just kind of wanted to touch on that again just to see if we were clear on where we stood in that one. And Red gets out. We've already talked ad nauseum about everything else that happened in the episode. But Red gets out and makes Ressler promise to give Liz the benefit of the doubt in order to get this blacklister. Do you think he actually convinced Ressler to do so? Or do you think the very end where you see Ressler, the look on Ressler's face as he sees Liz proclaim that she is a Russian spy, basically. Do you think he's going to be unable to do so?
I think that he could. What I'm trying to go back and figure out is, at any time did Ressler know that she was previously named Masha Rostova, or is that only known between Red and Liz? And of course, I just did the rewatch, so I should have this on the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, my memory banks are drawn a blank right now. If
really
anybody
disappointed in you, Troy. Really disappointed in you.
I know. Disappointed in myself.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the conflict because, he's definitely angry. And like I said earlier, we've seen throughout the series that Ressler is ruled by emotion. I don't know if he can actually give her the benefit of the doubt now. And I think that promise is going to come back to bite him in the butt because he actually promised Red something. I think if he doesn't deliver on that promise, he and Red are going to have a problem. A bigger problem than they already have.
Yeah, which goes back to your little nuggets that you were talking about, like, doing little favors here and there, and then eventually it's going to come back and hurt him in the end.
Whew. Man, that does it, I think, for our episode, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, with a pretty long thing, but we still got so much more to do.
It's a season premiere. I mean, it's always a little longer for the premiere. These episodes are usually about a little under an hour, but man, there's so much to talk about.
There is.
Is there anything else you want to touch on or mention before we wrap it up?
The only thing that I could think before we move into our fun story time with Red and the listener feedback is Hulu. Surprisingly, I went up this morning and found out that Hulu does not have the episodes of the Blacklist on Hulu.
I am so ticked at this, Hulu. You Hulu people. Well, it's probably NBC, so if that's the business decision, fine. I understand you got to do those, but man, that's how I watched a lot of it last season because I can catch up. I even actually bought the Hulu Plus, without
the commercial-free option, yeah.
Commercial-free. I don't know, what do they call that? Super Plus? Whatever. I got that just so I could watch the Blacklist. That's literally the only reason I got it, and it's not on there this season, apparently.
The thing that I kind of found out is that the player is also not on there, and so what that led me to find out is
the player's on there. I watched the player on Hulu.
It's not on mobile. It's only on desktop.
Huh?
Yeah, when I went on my Hulu Plus app, the player wasn't on there.
Well, it was on I watched it on my Roku. Hey, we're just doing product plugs left and right, and thank you. Sponsored by Roku.
Exactly. What I was thinking is maybe this is a Sony Pictures television issue, not an NBC issue, because Heroes is produced by NBC Television, Universal, where the player and the Blacklist are done by Sony Pictures. So I'm wondering if Hulu had an issue with Sony Pictures, not necessarily NBC.
I don't know, but it was on there last season, so I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the Netflix deal, because Netflix gets Blacklist after the fact. So I don't know what the situation is, but like other people I'm sure listening, I was unable to get it on Hulu. You're not crazy. It's just not there. We're looking to find out what the situation is. If we can get an answer, we'll let you know, but I know that bums some people out. Yeah,
it's only been a day, so maybe it's got a hold or something for 8 days or whatever.
The player was on. I'm just saying that came on after Blacklist, but maybe it's because of the premiere and there's so many cool things.
Well, and to be fair, the Blacklist can be searched on Hulu, but when you find the episode only on the desktop, not on the mobile, the desktop will reroute you to NBC.com to watch the show.
Mm-hmm. So you can watch it online. You can watch it on NBC.com. And I don't even know if they might not even have commercials. I honestly don't know. I didn't watch it there. I just ended up watching it. I had DVR'd it because I always DVR the Blacklist because I rewatch, but I like my Hulu, man.
I like watching it on the mobile on the go when I want to.
Yeah, me too. But that's neither here nor there. Any other thoughts on on the premiere or where we're going, season or episode 2? You have any opinions, theories?
My only thought is it Thursday yet?
Man, I'm so pumped. This was such a great episode. Such a great episode. I have seen many season premieres that were just okay. This was not one of them. This was phenomenal. Okay, well, let's get into Red's Rhetoric and all our other fun stuff. Remember to be sure to download the Blacklist Exposed app for iOS and Android, and be sure to go even deeper into the mystery of Red Reddington by visiting our partner Blacklist sites, theblacklistnbc.com, as well as Clearing the Red Tape Facebook group.
And don't forget to make your favorite hits this season by visiting Clamor.com. That's CLAMMR. And in case you're new to Clamor, you can hear a few examples right on our website, theblacklistexposed.com. Be sure to tag your Clamor with the hashtag TheBlacklistGSM so we can see them and then maybe even feature you on the show at some point.
That's right. So all 8 of you that use Clamor, have fun. And now, let's see. Troy doesn't like that because I always dig on his Clamor product plugs.
Rory and Bill hate you now.
I don't care. And now let's see what stories Red has to tell with this week's Red's Rhetoric.
Well, this week, 2 story times from Red. The first one comes when they are down under the sink, if you will, in what looks like an old subway tunnel or sewer pipe that they tiled in. I'm not quite sure what that was. But anyway, he has a nice conversation with Liz as he talks about how to find peace below the wind.
This reminds me of Sok Beach. We were navigating the backwaters in western Cambodia, hoping to steal some sapphires from a mine foreman. Got as far as Pai Lin when the monsoon struck. Took shelter in a root cellar of all places. I've never seen so much rain. Winds like a monarch gone mad. All we could do was hunker down and wait it out. But Sok, he just made a run for the village. So there I was, soaking wet, alone. 3 days of absolute misery. And then on the 4th day, I was overcome by this incredible feeling of peace. Something about being hidden there underground while the rest of the world was being torn apart outside.
This isn't making me feel better.
You have every right to be afraid. Just don't let it control you. Poor Sok learned that the hard way.
What happened to him?
He died. Didn't get 6 steps before the wind blew a blade of lemongrass into his scalp. You're in a storm, Lizzie. You need to find the peace below the winds.
Our second clip this week comes from the conversation between Red and Ressler as they are deciding what to do about the troll farmer.
Kudos, Donald. I'm impressed.
What do you want?
To give you a blacklister.
I'll pass.
The diversion that allowed me to slip past your perimeter. The man who orchestrated that cooked it up in under an hour. He's an illusionist essential to criminals such as myself, and I am giving him to you.
Where's Keen? You said you got past the perimeter? She wouldn't be calling unless she didn't.
No, she didn't. But I'm not telling you anything you don't know already, Donald. I'm sure by now you found the vehicle that was transporting her.
So that's what this is about. You knowing that I'll find her and giving me a blacklister in exchange for when I do.
No. It's not a trade, or a bribe, or an offer of payment in kind to entice you to look away. I admire your probity too much for that.
So what do you want? Because you only give to get.
All I want is your word, as a man of honor.
My word.
You know Elizabeth. You know she's not a Russian spy or a traitor or a terrorist. You know that's not who she is.
Doesn't matter what I know.
If you catch her at will, it will matter a great deal. What you know about her, what you feel about her could make all the difference. So, my offer. 1 blacklister in exchange for your word that you will give her the benefit of every doubt. Can you do that, Donald? Can you give me your word?
Yes.
His name is Bo Chang, 65 East Goethe.
Bo Chang. Got it. Hey, Reddington. I will find you.
You know, as my father used to say to me, just because you've been bumped up to first chair in the orchestra doesn't mean you can compose a symphony.
Those are our two clips this week. The first one, hashtag red peace. The second one, hashtag red word. If you like either one of those, make sure you send us a tweet at the Blacklist GSM with your vote. Again, hashtag red peace, hashtag red word, or you could like the clamor when we have them posted. Just go to clamor.com, look for our account, the Blacklist GSM, and click the like button to cast your vote so we can see who wins the first Reds Rhetoric of the season.
People always ask me what I love most about Spader's portrayal of Red Reddington. It's that gravelly voice and use of words like probity. I just love that, because nobody would ever use that in a common conversation, but he just throws it out there like, I admire your probity.
Yes.
I like that. Now let's dig deeper with our special agent intel. Dotch or Dawatch? I hope I'm saying it. I'm sorry, man, but I don't know how to pronounce it. You got to send me a pronunciation chart when you send your email in. It says, yowza! What a great premiere. I think the whole Red Elizabeth dynamic has changed for the rest of the series. I did not like the way that the task force hierarchy has resettled. Still, a blonde Keen is better than no Keen. Spader was great on Today, this AM. I didn't see it. Did you see him on today's show?
I did not see him with Kathy Lee and Hoda because I have an issue with Kathy and Hoda personally.
Wow.
I can't watch that as television. That's not television.
Okay. Troy's a little bitter. I totally expected him to take out Hoda Lee and Kathy Lee as Blacklisters numero 67 and 68.
Now I'm with you, Dwatch. I'm all about that.
That's so funny. It says it did not like the way that the task force hierarchy resettled. What? I like it. I mean, it's a nice twist, I think.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see who jockeys for what positions and if anybody gets more elevated. Again, that Samar-Ressler relationship, that's going to be really interesting to watch.
But I get where he/she is coming from, though. I mean, I don't know your gender, sorry. But I definitely see where they're coming from, because it is a complete departure from the previous two seasons. So I can see where you're coming from.
Do you also get a sense that not so fond of the blonde hair based on the comment? A blonde Keen is better than no Keen?
And I'm with them. Yeah, I'm with them, because I'm a brunette guy. Brunette or red. I'm never been a blonde guy. Nothing against blondes listening. Love you. I'm sure you're a beautiful person. It's just a personal preference. Yeah.
Okay. With that, we have a caller actually called in. This is a first-time caller, long-time listener. Not to plague on the old radio days, but it's actually true. And this guy has never actually watched the show.
In a world where a long-time Blacklist Exposed podcast listener like Wayne Henderson is persuaded to watch the Blacklist TV show this year and not just listen to this excellent podcast, Wayne joins millions of other viewers in enjoying the Blacklist TV series, which is making me wonder, could Red actually be Liz's mother? Glad to have you back, Troy and Aaron. Fun episode of the Blacklist to kick off season 3. We had lots of action, some comedy, a little bit of gunplay, blonde hair, and other stuff. I'm sure we'll have more action again next week, but I'm going to head out for now. And before I do, please give my regards to Chi-Chi.
Oh, Wayne.
For those that don't know, Wayne's a personal friend of ours. I actually do a podcast with him called the Packers Fan Podcast, if you're a Packers fan. And he also does the movie trailers at the end of Aaron's other podcast, Remake This Movie Right, which was a sample of his movie trailer capability.
Oh, man. He does a great job. You got to listen to him. The Mummy, the most recent episode of Remake This Movie Right, the Mummy trailer he does is hysterical. Loved it.
But I'm glad he's finally watching the show and not just listening to us.
Yeah.
It's always good to have both perspectives.
He's kind of been off-putting about the show for a while now, and he gave it a shot, and he actually enjoyed it. So, woohoo, we're winning.
That's right. Our podcast helped bring a new listener.
That's right.
In this case, we had one from Suzanne over on the Facebook group said, well, talk about hitting the ground running. It seemed the episode was only like 20 seconds long. It was there, and boom, it was gone before we knew it. The show felt like a family reunion of sorts. I haven't seen my friends in such a long time. Woo! There were so many things going on in season 3 opener. My favorite moment, when Red sees Lizzie as a blonde. Lizzie is her mother's daughter. James spadered the hell out of that scene.
Nice job.
I like that. We got to use that one the rest of the year. Spadered the hell out of that scene. Red let his emotions burst through the walls he has built around himself and then quickly pulled them back in. A few seconds of raw reaction was all Lizzie needed in order to get one step closer to understanding Red and herself. I was also intrigued by the mirror shots in that scene. The mirror slightly adjusted the contours of Lizzie's face. Perhaps it was to illustrate what her mother looked like at the age Red knew her. Best scene in the episode. Now, the new villain. Props to you, Sir Creepy, Ruthless and Cold. Superbly acted, and I'm ready to see more of Mr. Solomon. He makes Berlin seem like a teddy bear. I do. I just want to hug Peter Stormare. I do.
I don't. He'll stab you. No.
Finally, Dembe has his moment in the sun. Dembe certainly is not in the best of situations, but I am thrilled to see his character development. He's a daddy and a grandfather. A little complacent on Cooper, free from jail, and Ressler is hot on Lizzie's trail. It is interesting that in many ways, Ressler is the one imprisoned by the constant battle between what is often an unethical rule of law and a less accepted moral rule of law. Great episode, better than most we've seen thus far, and that bar was already pretty high.
Thanks for that. That was great. Good analogies. Yep.
Then we have a voicemail from our buddy Rory out in New Jersey.
Hey, Troy, Aaron, it's your boy Rory calling in from Jersey. Wanted to touch base on some Blacklist. Finally, welcome back. What a great way to start the season. I thought the episode was great overall. I liked how they set up for the season. Mr. Solomon, way to go with the creepy guy. Cooper, Red and Lizzie on the run. I thought it was great to see the dynamic between the two of them, how Red's chilling, drinking his wine, and Lizzie's freaking out while they're sitting in the bunker. It was nice to see that dynamic play off. I thought the camera work was great. Loved the scene, obviously, with Red and Liz after she dyes her hair. But overall, I think it was a strong episode. I think they're setting us up for what should be a great season. I hope listening to your interview with Mr. Knopf, awesome interview, gave us some real insight to where we may be headed. I'm curious to see how this next episode ends, being that he hinted to where it could be going. But just wanted to say, great episode. I give it an 8 for an opener, which for me is rating high. Curious to hear what you guys think. Look forward to listening. Talk to you guys soon.
So since he sent that, should we start all over until an hour and 20 minutes in or 25 minutes in, whatever it is, and start telling him what we thought again?
Exactly right.
Terry said, thanks for the voicemail, man. We really appreciate that. And thanks for enjoying the interview. If you haven't listened to that Daniel Knopf interview, who is a co-executive producer and writer on the Blacklist, great interview. You should definitely check it out. And Bokenkamp kind of teased he might come on the show. Didn't he, Troy?
He did. There was a tweet somewhere towards the end of the evening, and Bokenkamp said, "Hey, when can I come on?" And I was like, "Anytime." John, if you're listening, just follow us back or give us a call.
What's the email that he can send it to? In case he missed your tweet telling him?
Yeah, theblacklist@goldenspiralmedia.com.
All right. Now, Terry, last one. Terry said, "I love the fact that Dembe has a life and Ressler must have grown some over the summer. Had to wait and watch today. My niece was having her first child during the show. Congratulations to your niece." Ha! He was born at 11 as soon as the show ended here in California. Great episode.
That's because the baby was excited for the trailer for next week. That's why it came out at 11 o'clock.
I didn't watch it. I never watched the trailer. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I didn't watch it either. I'm just saying he was excited.
Oh, he was. He birthed.
Or she.
Or she. Sorry, niece. Niece would be she. Niece, Not in your world. In your world, sex is just transferable, apparently, all the time.
Everybody's asexual.
I think that is going to do it for this episode, man. Anything you want to say in closing as we wrap this puppy up and get out of here?
Just glad to be back with all of you, and hopefully we're in for a fantastic Season 3 of The Blacklist.
Yes, and I want to let you guys know we ran really long on this episode only because there was so much to talk about. We're not going to be that long every week, so you don't have to panic that we're just going to be verbally abusing you every week. So it's just a special episode. Well, that will conclude this episode. Be sure to follow us on Twitter this season at The Blacklist GSM. We live tweet during the East Coast feed, and we will use the show's hashtag, The Blacklist. We also have a Facebook group. Just search for The Blacklist Exposed and join us for the fun.
Intel from you is what we want, and we have a few ways you can submit intel here into the agency. You can interact with us on Tumblr, Instagram, Clamor, or as always, visit goldenspiralmedia.com/theblacklist to call us or use your smartphone to send us a message.
You can also subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and Stitcher from the website. And if you're really on the go, make sure you download our app for iOS and Android, powered by Spreaker. You will also find all the intel and analysis about this episode for The Troll Farmer by visiting theblacklistexposed.com. Big thanks for listening. Don't forget to answer our profiling question of the week. What do they want with Dembe? And I just rhymed that whole thing.
Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs. That's at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsider.com or on Twitter at H_outsider. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of
The Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production, copyright 2015. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.